start this off, we're talking about the term outsourcing, and it's
Do
affected.
you know that there was actually a TV show called Outsourcing?
Not
Did you
at
ever
all.
watch it?
No.
Yeah. It was about a dude.
Oh no, is it a call center?
It was about a dude from the U.S. that literally his entire job was outsourced. I think it was actually India, but he was designated to be the guy to go over to India and set up the office that basically replaced him.
Okay.
It was a entire TV show. I don't know how many seasons it ran.
It didn't go very long, did it? It got
No, because it got outsourced.
outsourced. I do remember. I think I remember a promo for that, and I remember thinking I should definitely watch that. And
I watched it.
did
I
not.
remember this was years ago, though. I think like 10 years ago or so. Maybe longer than that, actually.
Okay, so outsourcing in that connotation, not exactly good for him, but there are ways where outsourcing is positive, and like it kind of depends. I mean, it could be a skill set that your company doesn't have, and the right way to get it is to go find someone to fill that gap, like a third party, right? That's an outsourcing example. But then there's also the example where your company does something and then you've decided that you don't want them to do it anymore in their current location due to price or performance or something like that. And so you replace that piece of your company with something somewhere else, outsource it.
Yeah, I think that's more the industry standard, or that's more what the industry thinks of when somebody talks about outsourcing or talks about high value resource centers or something of that nature. They're talking about, hey, we're going to take work that we're currently doing and we're going to move that work from here, the U.S. somewhere, and we're going to put it at a resource center somewhere else in the world.
And usually that's driven by that other resource center because we're in the U.S.
Usually it's driven by cost.
It's driven by cost
Yeah.
because that other work center is in an economic position somewhere else where, in theory, they can get lower labor rates for a comparable output.
In theory.
In theory.
Yeah, I think so.
So what's your
Now, used to, they called it low value resource center.
low cost?
Low cost.
So the first
So they called it low cost.
the first rollout was
First
we're going to
rollout
use the
was
low cost center.
Now it's high value resource center. That's because
Has it
was
changed?
low cost, low value, and that is bad.
Did something change or just the name?
No, just the name. It's bad, right? Like you get low cost but not real good value. And there's like turnover, so you got to do it like 2 or 3 times before you actually get the value. But the price is cheap, so doing it 2 or 3 times okay. But so you can't call it that because then it sounds negative to everybody. So then you change the name, you call it high value resource center. Well, now it sounds like you're getting a ton of value for it. But it's the overall concept is the exact same. Didn't really change.
Okay. So what have you seen in those instances where that has been done? And obviously things change over the years, but part of the sort of the negative reputation of some of that is maybe the communication's not the same.
Yeah.
So obviously you're geographically separated. You're also time zone separated.
Well, exactly. You're geographically separated. Your time zone separated. Your culture separated. So language is a part of the culture, right? But I mean, just the culture in general, you're separated, right? And all those add challenges to it. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then the result of that in sort of from the American perspective in these sort of relationships is like, oh, well, we have more recycle because of that. Because we had a team that was attempting to help us in a high-value engineering center, but our communication struggled a little bit in trying to convey the scope, and our time, our time zones were off, so we weren't in congruence as much with the way that we were working. And consequently, we got like the first batch of work back, and it really wasn't what we looked for, and then we kind of had to sort of change the directive and adjust the scope, and then kind of recycle and recycle. Is that sort of the story you're
Yeah, I
remembering?
think in general, your recycle on that process is probably 2 or 3 times. So yeah, your initial cost seems lower maybe, but then you have to recycle it 2 or 3 times. Now, in some instances, even the recycle though could 2 or 3 times you still wind up with a lower cost. I think it's mainly driven by cost. To be
Yeah.
honest with you, I don't think it's driven by like knowledge necessarily. I think it's a cost driven process. So
Okay.
even if you have to recycle it 2 or 3 times, if the overall cost is still lower, then it still has value, right? Just from
True.
a straight up business perspective.
That is one of the conversations that has happened around this topic is, yeah, it wasn't it wasn't easy, but due to a lower cost, we still are okay with it. Uh, but I think though sometimes though you do have an overall schedule that you are attempting to meet, and that doesn't allow for that recycle.
Yeah,
right? So you can't
true.
always, you don't have like
could
an
affect the
infinite number
schedule,
of
or
loops.
you could have, if you get into those bigger projects like that where you're building a greenfield facility or doing a major like additional train or something of that on an existing facility, then yeah, I mean you could run into schedule delays and that could cause additional funding issues, right? But overall, I think that was overall, I think that's the whole reason for the outsourcing is it's low cost. It's low cost,
Okay.
right?
And so it's been a pretty common theme. I mean, I started in the industry in 2002, and I feel like that topic has been around almost since the beginning of my career in terms of there's always sort of this element, kind of, if you're working stateside and you've got a project, there's like this sort of pressure, is some of this have to be done somewhere else in the world? How do we balance it out? Even now, sometimes you got bids that are just like saying, well, hey, how much of your labor force is going to be in a high value center? Even like calling it out on the proposal,
yeah,
or the RFP.
That's wild to me.
Even if you say, hey, look, I can do the whole thing here in Houston for this price, and it may be the cheapest price in the whole like deal, but there's still like this requirement where you have to do some sort of high value
that's
component.
kind of wild to me. I don't quite
Weird, isn't it?
I don't quite understand that. I gotta be honest with you. Like what? Like what you're telling me, and I've been on some of those projects where you create that bid and you create that proposal and you say, hey, look, here's a price. This is a price we can do, and then you get it back, and they're like, well, how much high value resources are you using? And you're like, well, I'm not necessarily ? And they're like, well, you have to. And you're like, well, wait, why do I have to? Right? Like,
We'll define high value.
Isn't it supposed to be that I give you a fair price for what I'm delivering? Like I don't quite understand that. So I get lost in that sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess like you're saying, define value.
In that instance, it almost feels like an arbitrary requirement.
Yeah, right. Because the overall idea there, and this is what I guess, this is the way I guess you could see the industry going, which I think it would be a better thing to do is hey, I understand everybody, businesses in general, you want to save costs to increased profits. I mean, that's just like business 101, right? Like you have to make a profit. Well, okay, but there's multiple ways to do that. One way to do that is you take what you're currently doing and you shift it to a high value resource center because you could get theoretically, like you said, the same work or same output for maybe cheaper. Just by the resources that you're using. Another way you could do that, though, is to take your work you're currently doing and be more efficient in it.
Yes.
Right? Like,
so if you work to find a way to be more
smarter.
if you work to find a way to be more efficient and lower the cost where you currently are, then you don't necessarily need to split the work into some other location. You could just kind of get better where you are. And I think that the problem that I've seen is like, it's almost like that's not considered as an option. It's like, no, we've already decided that the only way you can do this, and when I say we, I just mean like the whole industry has just decided the only way you can do this is to find a cheaper labor rate, period. So you must go out and do that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think maybe that started, years, decades ago or whatever, and maybe from like a technology position that did make the most sense to do it that way, right? Like, because a lot of that work was still being manually done. But then you get into our age today, and you get new technologies popping up, AI coming out and going to be a big player in that space, just other technologies coming in. Okay, well, maybe that's not the right answer anymore. Maybe the right answer is to use resources that you already have, or resources that are local, and help those resources work more efficiently in what they do. Maybe that'll even lower the cost even more, right?
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you remember being outsourced, like throughout your career?
What do you mean by
What's
that?
the first example you can really think of? I mean, I had two come to mind for me. So,
What are your two?
well, the first one is IT.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, right, I mean, when I started, very clearly knew that we had IT resources in our company, and they were available down the hall, and you could call them, and they would come help you, right? They'd set up your computer, they'd answer your question, do whatever. But then that became, to me, one of the first cases where people looked at that and said, we're supposed to be able to get that cheaper by setting it up remotely, and the cheaper resources are overseas. So we've now gone to like a third-party company IT situation, and you no longer have a local resource. You go to this generic email inbox, you submit your request, and then some new team that we don't know, that we've never met, that we really don't have a relationship with, is supposed to solve your problem. Do you remember that happening?
Oh yeah, I think IT was one of the big ones in our industry that was the first to go. But then even getting into engineering and design, that started to go too, right?
Well, I think PNID drafting is one that
Yeah.
I've seen a lot, where in many companies that's more like a red line process. So you have engineers that mark up the decision, and then we say, okay, well, we need someone who's going to update that in the electronic version of that drawing. So you may on a table have a paper drawing, and you go add a component to it, or you make a change, and then that gets sent to to a remote center for someone to do that CAD, because CAD was kind of like, to me, after IT, CAD was looked at as another far outsourceable task. It was something you could kind of define in a bucket, and you could say, okay, this, I want you to do these tasks every day, pick up these adjustments. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? So I
Yeah.
saw those two happen.
I guess the question I got there is, why would you do that if you're using intelligent systems that could automate some of those tasks that you're talking about?
Well, that was the struggle that I saw, was now you had taken, so take IT. I think, to me, the IT transformation did not go very well. It's still a point of contention.
Well, it didn't go very well because of what? The support?
Yeah,
why
I
do you
think
think it didn't go
support
well?
and overall trust in IT went down from
Yeah,
that,
okay.
because now you may argue that people have it's the new normal and you just deal with it. It's kind of like when you call your insurance company and you don't expect to talk to a human, you talk to, or you don't expect someone like local or whatever. So I feel like IT, we've just kind of like sort of settled, and it is what it is, which I don't think that's good, but I think we did. With the engineering stuff, when we take like drafting and we sort of farm that out to an outsourced center, well, then what happens is when you adopt like a smarter tool that's supposed to have more responsibility, let's say we go from a CAD PNID to a smart PNID, And now the work that's being done at that responsibility is really work where you want to collaborate more. You want to put more data into it. You want it to be more of like a smarter part of the project. Well, the outsource mentality hurts that a little bit because now you don't have someone that you're going to and you're like saying, "Hey, how can this software do more for the project?" You're not really doing that because you're saying, "Hey, we've already outsourced that task.
Yeah.
Keep it pretty much
Keep
stagnant.
it separate over there.
Don't ask for ideas. Don't come up with new innovative thoughts. Just use it like we have set it up now. It is an outsourced task. Keep it that way. Do you know what I mean? Where I really want to have someone sit down at the desk and say, "Hey, I need to get more out of this tool. Let's talk about how you can draw things that help my team get more information or make the project better." And I think it did squash a little bit of that because you don't have you're not as engaged conversationally with all sides of the equation.
Well, I think that's come to light not come to light, but that's coming to light, I guess, within the last, 5-10 years as technology advances in that space because it's getting more complicated. So it's not just a CAD system that you draw. You want all the data behind it. So then it's in an enterprise level system with a database on the back end. So you want to know how to do that most efficiently and take advantages of all of the features that system has, right? And the only way to really do that is to have that close relationship between traditional or IT quote and your engineering design teams, right?
Well, the whole team.
The whole
You
team.
might have
that,
more of the discipline engineer and then the tool person and the IT team, and you actually want all three of those to sort of come together and really tackle the problem in like the most fantastic way to do it, right? And when you separate all three of those and you make it more of an email game because you've separated the people, you've abstracted them a little bit, like you don't know their personalities, you don't know their risk tolerance, like what they're interested in, what they really are up for, you kind of settle and you're just like, this is about as good as we can do.
Well, and then you also get into the thing where who's responsible for what, right? Like, oh, well, that group is responsible for this, or that group is, I'm not really responsible for that. And then that can get into like that weird situation where you're not working as a cohesive team, I guess is what you're saying, right?
Well, when you say I'm not responsible, it's like, okay, are you saying I don't have the rights I need to do that, or I shouldn't do it because it really belongs to someone else?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, right? When you get into those complex systems, it could be you don't have the rights to do it because you're not responsible for it. And so even if you requested the rights, you're not going to get them, right?
Yeah, but also you might not even want to try it or take the risk.
Correct.
Because
yeah.
Because I mean, there's an aspect where you've separated the responsibilities, you've outsourced them, and most of the time when we're talking about this, we really do mean like separated, like location wise too, because most of the outsourcing we're talking about is a remote office, could be one like I said on the other side of the world or whatever, and so you're battling. It's just easier to stay complacent, I guess, and just back off. But my question was like, well, does it? Have we really? What could you do to maybe meet in the middle? If you say
that's the question.
If you say that, okay, I'm doing work in Houston, it's not efficient enough. I could do work globally somewhere else, and it's cheaper maybe, but there are some challenges that come with it. Have we even really given a shot to the middle ground? I think that's what I struggle with in my career. Is it felt like it just went black-white. It went from here to completely outsourced.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're pushing it over here, and that's the overall question that I have too. Is why are we not thinking about that middle ground? Why are we not using the resources that we have and the technology that we have now to just make those resources more efficient and lower cost in that manner. And I think a little bit of that is going on and is happening, but there still is this overarching mindset that, hey, I have to use a low value, or not low value, high value resource center. Like, I have to do it. I have to do it. That's the only way I can save costs. Well, maybe you could create a high value resource center right here in America and use technology to supplement some of that off. Right?
Well, some of that's about cost of living. Like if price is part of this discussion, I think you have to have a discussion about, hey, might there be opportunities to do something in the Midwest or build some labor centers that are not in your traditional like hotspot locations? I mean, we all know the cost of living in Silicon Valley. We all know the cost of living in New York. We all know the cost of living like downtown Houston. But like, what is the cost of living in Oklahoma or Kansas or, Texas somewhere where maybe if you want an office of people to contribute to these industries, could you gain some efficiency by just thinking a little bit outside of the box and just going to some locations that are not quite your stereotypical big business locations?
Yeah, and setting up a center there.
Yeah, and then you say, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mitigate some of my labor rate scenario by going to a little bit less in demand location. I'm also going to say, hey, times are changing. So this isn't just about you've seen the pictures of like the rooms just full of desks and just full of people, right? And so your multiplier is just purely the human hour and how much they can type in an hour. Well, we're talking about you're talking about like helping out with engineering projects or helping out with managing engineering information for an operations facility, right? So in the context of our discussion, we're saying, okay, well, one thing I could do is maybe find some middle ground that's not downtown Houston where I build some workers. And maybe because I'm pulling them from a non-traditional location, there's a little bit of cost advantage. They're willing, because of their cost of living, to work at a different rate. But then also you're saying, okay, no longer do I need 1,000 people in this room all sitting at one desk. Maybe with AI technology, I can make a worker and a half, a 1.5 factor worker or something, or whatever multiplier you want to throw in there. So now I'm going to say, well, let me teach those folks to be competitive by being in close contact with them and giving them some tools that we're going to try to turn them into a multiplier on their effectiveness.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, I think that's very possible. I mean, even so I was actually reading and going through some of what Sam Alterman, I'm probably saying his name wrong. He did a
I don't think there's like an ER in there.
Oh, whatever. It's something, right?
Yeah.
How do you say it?
I think just Altman.
Altman?
I think so.
Just Sam Altman?
Like Control Alt
Like
Delete.
Control Alt Delete?
Yeah, I think so. Altman.
That's kind of a fitting name if you think about it. Like,
yeah, I know.
that's his given name. Control Alt
Delete. I think
Delete.
so. If I got this wrong, we have to cut all of this out of the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. That's okay.
Anyway,
Sam Altman.
there you go.
Okay, I like the Control Alt thing. It helps my brain think. I was reading through some of what he was talking about, because he's talking about AI and what's going to come of that, and even Microsoft just like a couple months ago, they did this report where they did a study over a number of years, I think 2 years, or it might have been 18 months, to identify what occupations that they thought the most would be affected by AI within the next 5 or so years or whatnot. Anyway, what he actually said in that was kind of funny. Sam did. One of the first major occupations that he said would be affected by AI would be call centers. So like what you were saying a minute ago about it, you have that outsourced the call center and you call for tech support or whatever, right? And you get that automated, like not automated.
That whole thing is now going to be replaced. So it was like
not that automated, but you go through, you do the call center, and you hit a call center in like India or Venezuela or the Philippines or wherever, right? For credit cards or whatnot. Yeah, that whole thing's going to be replaced by AI now. It's just going to be AI.
Because it was one of the first things to be identified as a outsourceable thing. So it
Correct.
kind of becomes the first thing to be identified as a AI
AI
replaceable thing.
thing.
Yeah.
So and he had this whole like discussion about how that you're gonna do one of those call centers and you're gonna pick it up and it's gonna sound like a person, but it's not. It's just gonna be AI. AI is gonna be talking to you. I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, that's wild.
Yeah. Well, and so taking maybe a little bit of a non-traditional worker location and then augmenting that. And another thing is like education requirements for jobs. I think is interesting. Like we work in a business where kind of like the default is a bachelor's degree, but are all of the things that we're doing really require that? So one of the challenges I think in the outsource is like, oh, well, we have to outsource because technically we have to have engineers. So there's a whole bunch of engineers available somewhere else and they're cheaper over there. Like, okay, but have you looked at that task that you're talking about? Like, is that really an
100%.
engineer task?
Or
Like,
all
I'm
the
not
engineer
I'm not
tasks?
denying that we need an engineer in the loop. Like, they need to be a part of this discussion. But maybe we're filling roles with a quote unquote engineer
that don't need to
when
be an
technically
engineer.
that just needs to be a person who, a reliable person who wants a good job opportunity, and they're going to learn how to do a fairly repeatable task. And you're right. So I think one of the struggles is, okay, well, we outsourced to this location because they had a whole bunch of engineers available. But is anybody asking, like, is that really an engineer task that you're worried about? You know what I mean?
I don't think that question is being asked.
That's where I'm going is in this whole equation. I haven't had a debate where you were able to like scrutinize this. Do you know what I mean? It's always kind of just been like, here's the answer. It's going to a high value center. That's the end of it. And like, okay, but would
why?
you listen to a debate about would you participate in a debate about how we might be able to make that competitive here?
I think those are good questions.
And when I say here,
I think we need to have somebody
I'm
on
saying
to discuss that.
from American, from like companies that have a lot of American like footprint, the more they can do in the same time zone with the same culture, same communication, there's a lot of benefits to that. So anytime you cut something out and you outsource it, you do risk the communication, you risk some on the culture, you risk some on the collaboration, the innovation, because you have like put it in a box. You've kind of like you just said this is it, and we just want that to be replaced by like a more of a mechanical solution.
Yeah, and then the question I have there, leading to all of the stuff that you were just talking about, and I guess to add to it is with the rise of newer technology, especially AI technology, is there any way to incorporate that as your high value resource center? So why can't you use AI as the high value resource center? Why can't you get, like you were saying, some resources even from different aspects or locations that are more cost effective within America, train them how to do those tasks that might not be directly engineering related tasks, but train them how to do some of those tasks using AI technology to help you actually execute the task and QA the task. And then you have your engineer in the loop that just vets it, right? I mean, that's pretty much what a high value resource center does right now, right? You have an engineer in the loop that kind of manages and looks over everything. Large portions of the actual task get shipped off to that center, get executed, and then it comes back. And then that management team has to look at it and kind of change it, modify it, whatever. And then there's that whole cycle process that we talked about. Why can't you do that right here with technology? That's my question, right? Like, why have that entire feedback loop when you can literally have technology help you out and it never eats or sleeps or drinks or takes a break or
And like to summarize that,
it's like a robot.
When are you going to see the headline that says Company X, instead of moving 1,000 jobs overseas, creates a 100-person equivalent center in rural Texas? When is
Yeah.
that headline coming out?
When is that coming out?
Yeah.
I can,
Because right now it feels like that has been totally ignored and the decision already cut off at half of that headline that just says Company X moves 1,000 jobs. Period.
yeah, I know. Where's the headline, I guess, that you're saying is like, hey, Company X is going to build a 1,000 or 500 person team in rural Nebraska, and it's going to be an AI engineering design center. Where's that headline? Because I
Yeah.
think that's cable.
And some of those people might be jobs that maybe that was a factory job in the past. Maybe that was
yeah,
a
100%.
telephone company job, right? That all those jobs have kind of like sort of changed and morphed
Yeah.
into something. So, and those aren't all like necessarily high degree required type scenarios. So how do you build that? Where do you build that center and nurture it and foster it, knowing that like on day one it's not going to be perfect, right? Day one it's like it helps some, but you're just the same way that like the high value, the kind of concept, it didn't work very well at all in the beginning, but like it sort of got better over time.
Over time.
And I
yeah.
think the question is here in the US, like why are we not even trying that to allow that to get better over time? Or maybe somebody is trying that and I just don't hear about it, but I haven't heard anything about that. My whole career, everyone has in the Houston industry at least has basically been saying, hey man, I'm a little concerned because we just got a requirement to put a larger percentage of our work somewhere else, and more and more and more throughout the years, up until even right now I'm watching that happen to some of the people we're working with, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I don't know what that will look like in the next. I think eventually that's going to happen, is what I think. Eventually somebody is going to do that. Especially within the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years. I don't see how that's not going to happen because of the rate of change of technologies. And you have other companies out there. It's weird because you have other companies out there that are in different industries, if you will, but already kind of do that, right? Like if you take automotive industry for an example, well, you look at some of the traditional automotive facilities still have like large groups of people running it, operating in on the actual assembly lines, whatever. Some of the newer automotive facilities, though, they're all automated. I mean, they got like I think it was Toyota in Alabama has that ginormous facility. There's only like 1,000 people at that facility, and it's one of the largest automotive facilities in the world.
Yeah.
And the rest of the line is automated. And you got companies, other technology companies, in the space segment. You got technology companies that they can't, because of what they're building, they can't outsource their technology to other companies. There's regulations behind it, right? Same kind of regulations in the nuclear space. You can't, America, the government won't let you outsource it. So you have to do that here in America. How are they doing it? Because they're doing all of that engineering and design here, and they're making it cost effective. So,
Yeah.
So can you take some of the principles that they're using and apply them to our industry?
Yeah. Well, I think you also got to look a little bit about this tariff discussion. What Trump is advocating for is, buy American, invest in America. And the way to do that is to encourage the use of American products. I guess the question is a man hour an American product?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because we're in a business where we sell a design, but it's often quantified by the man hour that was spent. And then the object that gets charged is a unit, a man hour of time. So we get in this little debate about where do I find a cheaper man hour, which is that man hour is no different than a product, a piece of steel or something like that. I mean, it is the commodity that is being purchased. And so the tariff discussion has an interesting parallel to what do you do with labor? to encourage American companies to utilize American labor, you know, if at all possible, for the good of
For the good of it. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, to me, that's kind of, you know, that's a pretty good kind of overview from an outsourcing perspective. I'm interested to see that concept be tested.
I'm interested for people to message us and give us ideas that we can talk about around that. Because I think that would be interesting to hear what our listeners think about that. Talk about some of those ideas. What's it going to look like? I think it's going to be drastically different in the next 5 to 10 years. And I know that there's some big companies that are investing in this right now, and they're kind of going down this path. But in 5 to 10 years, I think it'll be drastically different, and I think there'll be a lot of advantages that we'll be able to take.
So we're actually betting on or hoping, I don't know, looking forward to the possibility of bringing some of that back. The work is still scaled down; it's still more efficient, but it's bringing it back into closer to the core business. You know, increase communication, increase innovation by reining that back in.
Correct.
That's what I'm interested
That's what I'm interested in. I think it's going to happen.
Okay.
I'm excited for the future.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining us in this discussion about outsourcing, and we'll be back with another one soon.
Thank you. Yep.
You can like cut the last 10 seconds of that.
Yeah, probably.